I am Kelly Arrington, and this is your WTRT Tigers War News Update. In campus news, February 1st marked the 81st Annual National Freedom Day observance at Savannah State University. National Freedom Day is an observance day to commemorate the signing of Abraham Lincoln passing the 13th Amendment declaring African Americans freedom in the United States. Savannah State University's first former president, Richard R. Wright Sr., initiated this remembrance to celebrate the revolution. The ceremony began with opening speeches from Dr. Carolyn Jordan, the great-granddaughter of Richard R. Wright Sr., followed by President Kimberly Ballard Washington, Savannah State University's president. The traditional wreath layering was held in front of Richard R. Wright Hall dormitory as the youngest heir in the Wright family places the wreath on the bust of Richard R. Wright Sr. Students, relatives, locals, faculty, and staff gathered to honor the history and legacy of Richard R. Wright Sr., which will forever remain. In national headlines, the Powerball jackpot is now up to about $700 million. That's after no one matched all 6 numbers in Wednesday night's drawing to win the jackpot. The cash option, which most winners choose, would be at least $375 million. The chances of winning this Powerball jackpot stand at about 1 in 292 million. Saturday's drawing will not be considered the 6th largest Powerball jackpot in the game's history. Autism diagnosis rates in children increased threefold in less than 2 decades. That's according to a new study published in the journal Pediatrics. Researchers from Rutgers University focused on diagnosis rates from 8-year-olds in the New York to New Jersey metro area. They found that between 2000 and 2016, the rate of autism diagnosis tripled. One reason for the higher rate of diagnosis may be that there is more awareness of autism within the general public. There are also better tools for diagnosing autism and more education about it. The U.S. military is getting expanded access to places in the Philippines as part of an effort to counter China's aggression towards Taiwan. In the deal, American forces get access to 4 more bases in the Philippines. This gives the USA greater strategic footing in the South China Sea, less than 200 miles from Taiwan. Subway sandwich shops are making a big change. They're adding automatic meat slicers to every restaurant. Instead of using pre-sliced meats at its locations, the slicing will soon be done in front of customers. Subway CEO John Chetsey says he believes customers will have a better appreciation of seeing fresh meat sliced in the store. He also says the new method will save Subway money, which they plan to reinvest in upcoming menu changes. Subway already revamped its menu last year to offer more customization last summer. The company says they will help to achieve a record-setting year for sales in 2022. We're looking at 6 more weeks of winter, at least according to Puxatawny Phil. That's the groundhog's prediction after seeing his shadow this morning. Did you know there's a thing called Groundhog Day syndrome? It may not be an official medical diagnosis, but it's the term some use to describe the feeling that you're reliving the same day over and over again. In today's Health Minute, we have tips to help break out of your rut.
If you only had one day to live, what would you do with it?
Made popular by Hollywood, the idea of Groundhog Day syndrome is simple. It feels like each day is the same. You're reliving it over and over again.
Although it's not a psychological diagnosis, it is a feeling that is familiar to many.
Cleveland Clinic psychologist Susan Alber says when we do the same things over again, we can get bored. You may even feel trapped.
We get used to our environment and we start tuning it out. On the upside, this helps our brain to relax. We don't have to focus on everything. The downside is that we no longer experience things in the same way. It becomes less vivid and exciting.
Alber says breaking the boring cycle starts with being mindful. Each day, be present, both mentally and physically.
Feel, taste, touch. Look at that experience as if you are doing it for the very first time.
It's about waking up your mind. So Albert says try new things, meet new people, go to a different restaurant, taste a new food. Learn a new skill, try a different hobby, or take a trip somewhere you haven't been.
When we do new activities for the very first time, it triggers new neural pathways in our brain. It forms new connections. That's what leaves these lasting and vivid memories.
Breaking out of the norm can help you break out of your rut.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Albert says our brains love routine, so keep those routines, but add in new twists. Change up your exercise playlist or listen to a new podcast. She says whatever you're into, just changing it up a little will go a long way. In entertainment news, the Fast, the Furious, and the Freaky Jeremy Roth has multiple surreal vehicle stories taking place on and off the roads. And today's Take a Look at This.
We have loads of crazy vehicular mayhem today, starting with an intense rescue in the middle of the bustling Las Vegas Strip. It started when a BMW slammed into the median and began smoking. The driver was unconscious behind the wheel. Thankfully, a fast-acting bystander and a responding officer were able to pull the man from the car just as it burst into flames. The driver was sent to a hospital for treatment. The surreal Sin City scene is still being investigated. Traffic in Utah was brought to a standstill, not by an accident, but by a prancing pack of elk running wild across I-80. Utah DOT officials sent multiple traffic alerts and were able to successfully herd the herd to safety, but not before traffic was snarled by the wild scene. In Oklahoma, a wild weather-related scene unfolded when an 18-wheeler folded, jackknifing on a slick highway. Thankfully, the cable barrier did its job and no one was injured, but the driver was reportedly cited for traveling at an improper speed. In Australia, it was an accident of a different color, lots of colors, actually, when a cargo truck lost control and spilled more than 260 gallons of paint, turning a coastal area highway into a virtual Jackson Pollock painting. Officials say they were able to clean up the accidental art installation without any damage to the local environment. And finally, a bizarre and probably very expensive accident at a South Florida exotic car dealership left a Ferrari damaged and dangling in a malfunctioning elevator. It took hours and multiple massive winches to retrieve the supercar. I pity whoever is footing the bill for this bad boy. For Take a Look at This, I'm Jeremy Roth.
And finally, let's take a quick look at the world of sports with Daryl Green.
Starting in the NBA, Wednesday night, we watched a matchup between the Phoenix Suns and the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks dominated from the three-point line with 19 threes made, only to the Suns 4. The final score ended up being the Atlanta Hawks blowing out the Suns 132-100. In SSU Tiger football, Savannah State football inked up 18 new players on National Signing Day, with more to be announced as the official paperwork is completed. So far, the 2023 recruiting roster includes 6 Georgians, 6 Floridians, 3 from South Carolina, and 2 from North Carolina. The Carolinas and Florida are considered border states for Georgia schools, and so student athletes from those states receive in-state tuition. Savannah State added strength in the trenches this year, pinning 11 linemen after losing several key players to graduation last year. The early roster also includes 2 tight ends, a quarterback, a linebacker, and a wide receiver. 2 of the recruits came from Savannah. Jaleel Calhoun from Bethesda Academy signed with SSU on Wednesday. The tight end averaged 17.9 yards per reception with 4 touchdowns in his senior season. Out of Calvary Day School, Jalen Scott inked with the Tigers on Wednesday. The offensive guard was a leader for the Calvary up front, a team that went 22-4 over the last 2 years. Scott was offered by Division I programs such as Charleston Southern, but chose to stay home for his college career. Another big pickup for Savannah State was offensive tackle Dominique Kellens, who was being recruited by Mississippi Valley State and Bethune-Cookman. The Jonesboro, Georgia native chose Savannah on Wednesday. 2 players transferred from Savannah State from California schools. Defensive tackle Jamar Walker, originally from Columbia, South Carolina, comes to Savannah State from Los Angeles Valley Community College in Los Angeles, California. In December, Savannah State football added 4 early recruits that are part of today's roster. As more new recruits finish their official paperwork, they will be added to the 2022 roster over the next day. The roster can be found at ssuathletics.com. Savannah State men's basketball added to their list of routes this year with a 74-48 slashing of Allen on Monday. The reigning SEAC champions improved to 14-6 overall with the win and 12-4 in conference action. They remain the #1 team in the SEAC East Division. Savannah State opened Monday's game with a 13-0 run that resulted in a 38-point first half. Allen managed only 16 points in the first 20 minutes. Allen shot much better in the second half, sinking 43.2% of their field goal offerings, but SSU still managed to outscore them 36-32 in the final 26-point spread. Savannah State managed a 45.9% clip from the floor in the game. The Tigers scored 24 points off turnovers and had 9 blocks. Zachary Cobb led the scoring effort with 16 points on the night. Andrew Okorodudu had 11 points and 10 rebounds for the second double-double of his senior season. Savannah State returns to Tiger Arena on February 4th, hosting Clark Atlanta for their final home game of the regular season. Tip-off for senior night is set for 2 p.m. with the Lady Tigers hosting Clark Atlanta in a battle for the first place in the SEAC East Division. During halftime of the women's game on February 4th, Savannah State men's basketball will have a special ring ceremony celebrating their 2022 SEAC championship.
We had a great day bringing in Black History Month along with great weather. Could it get any better than this?
I think the only thing that could possibly be a little bit better is attending our Savannah State basketball homecoming game on Saturday.
And they're calling it the Homecoming 2.0. Thank you for tuning in to your WTRT Tiger Wars News. I'm Kelly Arrington.
And I'm Daryl Green.
Have a great day, everyone.